guys, I'm Cam and today I'm gonna talk about food on the trail. If like me you follow a meat-free diet, you are going stoveless and you want to stay healthy while on the trail, then keep on watching. So starting with breakfast, I usually have two options. Either if I've got myself ready, then I would have a cold soak, which consists of an empty jar of peanut butter, which I would fill up with some oats and some type of non-dairy milk, because I don't drink dairy milk, so I usually have some oat milk or preferably almond milk or even rice milk. So I would mix that with the oats and then add the fruits that I have handy. Banana, apple, usually that's the two that are in my backpack just because they keep well. And on top of that, I could use also some honey and any type of nut butter to really give me some energy for the rest of the day. If I haven't gotten myself ready for a cold soak, then I would make sure that I have snacks which can be used as a breakfast. So generally speaking, it tends to be Eat Natural bars. I really like the ones with cranberry and dark chocolate. I also really like the one that's the protein heavy one. It's not necessarily a taste I like, but it is really heavy on proteins. And again, if I don't have a cold soak, I would make an effort to have at least one fruit before I start the day, and that would usually consist of a banana. Moving on to lunch and dinner actually, because I tend to have the same things at dinner and lunch. Just depends on what I fancy, but because I'm going stoveless, usually it's the same thing. In fact, I often skip lunch and have a bigger dinner, just because during the day, if I'm hiking and I'm trying to just pack in the miles, I sometimes don't stop. I don't feel hungry until I actually stop at night, and then I am really hungry. So the things that I'm just about to mention are really for your big meal for the day, whether that might be lunch or dinner or both. So what I might have, for example, is those John West fish pouch. They have some with tuna, some with salmon. I really like the salmon one with lots of spices, and it's got lentils as well in there. And you could add some lentils on top of that from a can, for example. I also really like to have things that I can snack from during the day that are really easy to put together. So I would always tend to have some German rye bread that keeps really well in the backpack and doesn't get all crushed and crumbly, and it's also really healthy. Alternatively, in a sort of bready type department, I would also have some rice cakes. I really like the callo rice cakes. And then on that I would have some hummus, or I remember I mentioned that pate I really like from Holland Barrett, that is a sort of Mexican pate, organic with tofu, and it's a little bit spicy as well, and it keeps really well because it comes in this, it looks like a paint tube. It's aluminium, so it's not very ecological, but it keeps really well. You don't need a fridge for it. So I will put that on the bread, and I also carry cherry tomatoes, for example. Crisps, they don't really keep very well, they get all crumbly, but I quite like that. It's quite satisfying, and also it's really high in calorie, which is what you need in those types of conditions. And then there is the source of protein. So for me, my sort of guilty pleasure, but also quite handily, that's a high source of protein, is the corn, either mini sausages or corn eggs. They are really easy to carry, they keep really well in the backpack outside the fridge, and I just never seem to get sick of them. And the last thing is falafels. If I'm going through a city, a town, and there's a supermarket, I would tend to grab falafel just because they're made of chickpeas, and I wouldn't necessarily want to carry a can of chickpeas or any other pulses, but they're good things to have, especially for people who don't eat meat, so I definitely recommend that. And then lastly, with snacks, I really like nuts. In the real life or off trail, I don't tend to buy nuts which are roasted or salted, just because how high they are in calories. Now, of course, on the trail it's another story completely, so actually it's in your best interest to have as many calories as possible. as long as you're being sensible about what type of nutrients are in the food. But in the case of nuts, I like to have roasted and salted ones for the trail. So usually cashews, maybe peanuts, just generic nuts that are quite cheap at the supermarket. I also really like chocolate. I try to eat Snickers bars, but I don't really like them. The whole mix in them doesn't really, take my fancy. So usually dark chocolate is my thing. And of course fruits as well, which are really, really good for you. And well, fruits. Everyone knows why fruits are good for you. I'm not gonna say anything about coffee or tea because I don't drink hot drinks. It keeps it simple, and I just don't need any caffeine, so that's really practical, especially since I don't want to take a stove anymore in order to keep my weight down, the weight of my pack down. So yeah, no tea or coffee chat in here. And lastly, I want to mention something around vitamin supplements, because I know that this is something that is definitely part of some hikers' diet. Those things are not part of my diet. I don't consume supplements, and I try to find those nutrients in my food instead. Therefore, I have looked quite a bit into this and discovered the work of Arya Zoner, who is a well-known thru hiker in the US, and he's also a nutritionist. So he's done a lot of work, and he's got a channel which is the Whole Food Hiker, and loads of great videos, but there was one that caught my attention in particular, and that is to do with comparing synthetic sources of vitamins and natural sources. So he's done that for vitamin B7, B12, D, K, and also calcium, and it's just really incredible the type of things that you find out in that. So for example, just to mention one example, calcium, the synthetic form of calcium, if you were to have it in supplements, usually has some crushed up shells or bones, which to me just doesn't sound very appetizing. Instead, in the natural form, you could find high calcium in pine nuts or also in chia seeds, which, by the way, are great in a cold soak for breakfast. So that's just an example of the type of things you would have to ingest if you were having the synthetic form of the vitamin in a supplement versus where you can find it in natural things. Now, here's the doorbell. But you get the picture. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Also, please feel free to share your ideas in the comment section down below. And don't forget to subscribe. See you later.